Hello, it's time for Flashback, the weekly history quiz. Let's find out what's happened in history. All right, in 1975, in orbit far above the Earth, US and Soviet astronauts for the first time do the unthinkable, shake hands. Nice moment. And then against that, Louis XIV creates the first urban public transit system in Paris. Some wealthy riders simply buy every seat to avoid sitting next to commoners. Amazing. Obviously, that's going to be a few centuries before then, 1662. Robert Smalls escapes slavery, steals a Confederate ship, gives it to the Union, helps persuade Lincoln to enlist black soldiers, and is later elected to Congress. Can you even imagine having a life as impressive as that? I mean, it's absolutely mind-bending. Anyway, obviously, that'll be the 1860s, 1862. With the Korean War causing inflation, the Federal Reserve is granted real independence. Previously, it mostly just did whatever the president wanted. Yeah, and this is now sort of considered standard for national banks. Let's see. Or central banks, I should say. Sorry, what am I doing? That obviously goes here. That's not a question. Korean War makes it obvious. 1951. At the zoo, the writer A.A. Milne sees a friendly bear nicknamed Winnie. It inspires him to write stories about Winnie the Pooh for his son, Christopher Robin. I assume that's the early 20th century. Yeah, 1924 to 6. Nerdy, shy, and bullied in school, Jerry Siegel and his co-creator, Joe Shuster, debut a comic book hero who can stand up for others, Superman. Is that before or after 1924 and 6? I think probably after. Yeah, 1938. In Marbury versus Madison, the Supreme Court blocks a law that gives the court more power. The court thus gains a much larger power, striking down any law. Well, that's certainly a precedent of major importance that'll go in what the... Oh, okay, I was going to say maybe the end of the 18th century, but right at the beginning of the 19th. Marconi first sends radio signals across the Atlantic. The feat is thrilling but confusing, as scientists don't quite understand how it's possible. Wow, that's another thing that just would have seemed amazing, again, mind-bendingly amazing. Never having experienced such a thing before. Somewhere in here? Yeah, 1901. The inventor Abraham Darby first uses coal to forge cast iron. He makes cooking pots that are originally from the Netherlands, known as Dutch ovens. I'm going to assume that's before 1662. No, it's not. 1709. Oh, God. Something as simple as that, I just would have assumed was earlier. How annoying. Okay, well, that's shame. Right at the end, I fell and was in the most common category. Okay, so let's see what tripped people up. Obviously, essentially everybody correctly placed Louis XIV in his public transit system. That's very funny about people buying it all up. Okay, I'm in good company. A majority of us, more than half of us, misplaced the cast iron Dutch ovens. A quarter of people misplaced the Supreme Court, I guess putting it later probably, and its ability to strike down any law. Robert Smalls, unsurprisingly, was correctly placed by nearly, just essentially everybody. And again, about a quarter of people misplaced Marconi in the radio signals. This is one where I'm curious. Presumably people put that earlier, I guess. I'm not sure. A.A. Milne, yeah, most people, but 7% of people misplaced A.A. Milne and Winnie the Pooh. A fifth of people misplaced Siegel and Schuster in creating Superman, maybe presumably putting it... Well, no, maybe they put it after 1951. Maybe that's probably the case. I don't know. And then the Korean War inspired inflation, leading to Federal Reserve independence, was placed correct by most people. Okay, well, there we go. So the one that tripped me up is the one that really tripped everybody up. So my commiserations if you were among them. And that was the Week in History Flashback. I'll be back next week with more of this. Bye for now.